Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I will be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines yesterday and today. Joining me to bring you those stories today is our newscaster, Yetunde Afolabi. Good morning, Yetunde. How are you today?
Good morning, Dayo. I'm very well this morning. Thank you.
Good. It was miraculous on the roads coming to the studio this morning. I got here in about 10 minutes. There's no cars on the road. The roads are empty. This is a benefit of subsidy removal, isn't it? There's no cars on the road.
Can't complain, but I mean, there's also the bad side.
Yes,
you don't want to look at.
Absolutely. There's a downside, but if there's a silver lining behind that cloud is that there's no more traffic because everybody's parked their cars and they're all on public transport or they're trekking. Anyway, a benefit to subsidy removal if ever there was one. All right, let's take a look at some issues. Sad news today, the Nigerian under-21 team, Flying Eagles, are out of the under-20 World Cup. They were eliminated by Korea in a very intense match yesterday that went down to the wire. At the last minute, Korea scored one goal and eliminated our young chaps. Anyway, we had a good run. We got to the round of 16, a knockout round, and we actually got to the quarterfinal, and if we had prevailed in this round, we would have gone on to the semis. But kudos to our team, kudos to our players who acquitted themselves quite admirably, made us proud even though they didn't get the ultimate prize. On a sad note, well, bandits have killed 62 people in Sokoto and Zamfara villages over the weekend. We assumed that once these elections were over and we were under a new administration, that this issue of terrorism, banditry, violence, kidnapping would kind of reduce, but it's not seeming to abate. 62 people. I mean, human lives are going to be less valuable than the lives of chickens in this country at the moment. So we're hoping the new administration will do something on the security front to rejig its security architecture. I heard over the weekend that President Tinubu has nominated former EFCC chairman Nuhu Ribadu, who is a retired police officer with vast experience, and he's going to be our next NSA, which is National Security Advisor. So we look forward to good things coming from him in terms of coming up with ideas about how to neutralize this scourge of violence that's been sweeping across the country. All right, we also heard that the federal government has banned pupils under 11 years old from sitting the common entrance. I wonder why. I mean, if a child is brilliant enough, I think I sat common entrance when I was 10, and I passed in flying colors. If a child is brilliant enough at whatever age, he should be able to take the exam. Then it should be up to the parents as to whether they think he's too young to go into secondary school and maybe should have a gap year or do an extra year. But I think you should continue to test pupils' capabilities as they develop in age. So I don't know that that's a very good policy. All right, among other appointments, we've heard that President Tinubu has also appointed Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila as his chief of staff. We know the chief of staff role is very pivotal in any administration. In fact, it's supposed to be stronger than the vice president. It's supposed to be actually the second in command to the president because he basically is the one who runs the president's agenda. So Rep. Gbajabiamila is supposed to take office after the new NAS is sworn in and he's able to resign from his speakership position. So we look forward to him doing great things in that office. All right, having dispatched with the lighter items on our... before that, I have one headline. I have a newspaper of the week for you. I have newspaper award of the week for you. Yes, that's the newspaper. That's the one we're giving the award for this week. It's the Nation newspaper. On subsidies, saying federal government okays action on TUC demands. Now, why is that special? Well, because that headline makes it look like the federal government and the labor union have found a middle ground to agree on subsidy issue. What the paper is not telling you is that the NLC boycotted those talks. NLC did not show up at the meeting yesterday, so there is no agreement between government and labor. But some of you might guess why this headline is structured this way. You know who owns the Nation newspaper, right? There you go. So I don't have to say too much. You know who owns the Nation newspaper, and so that's why they're casting it to look like the federal government has resolved its issues with labor, whereas that's not very true. Talks are still ongoing, and as you shall see in our analysis section of the program, labor, especially the NLC, is still demanding that the federal government roll back the prices, put the subsidy back in by Wednesday, or else. I'll leave you to imagine what the or else means. All right. Okay, so let's go to Yetunde now for her to give us the headlines on the major news stories we are looking at today. Yetunde, over to you.
Thank you, Dio. Hello and welcome to the news update on What's Your Take. First, the headline. Subsidy removal. NLC set to begin nationwide strike on Wednesday. Citizens stockpile food items ahead of strike. National Union of Electricity Employees to join strike. NLC mobilizes ASU, JUSUN, and other affiliates unions, NNPCL says no going back on fuel subsidy. Tribunal admits exhibits from 6 more states against Tinubu's election. Now, the details. The Nigerian Labour Congress, at the end of an emergency National Executive Council meeting held in Abuja on Friday, June 2nd, announced its decision to embark on a nationwide strike action from Wednesday, 7th June. The strike action will be implemented if the NNPCL refuses to revert to the old pump price of premium motor spirit. Following this announcement by the NLC, citizens have begun a panic buying of food items ahead of the impending strike action amid the rising prices of food items. In a related development, the National Union of Electricity Employees has directed its members to withdraw their services nationwide by Wednesday in compliance with the directive of the Nigerian Labour Congress. The NLC has also mobilized ASU and its other affiliate unions to get ready to embark on the scheduled nationwide strike. In the letter written to the unions, the Congress said, "Please be informed that the nationwide action will commence on Wednesday, 7th June 2023. To this effect, all national leadership are expected to mobilize their members for the action and ensure full compliance with the directives, as services in both the public and private sector are expected to be fully withdrawn by Wednesday, 7th June 2023. All presidents and general secretaries are expected to help ensure the implementation of the decisions of the National Executive Council," the NLC remarked. And our final big story for this morning is that the Presidential Election Petition Court on Friday, June 2nd, admitted more exhibits from the presidential candidates of the Labour Party LP, Mr. Peter Obi, in additional 6 states, which included Adamawa, Bayelsa, Oyo, Edo, Lagos, and Akwa Ibom, in his quest to prove rigging and other electoral malpractice in the February 25th presidential election. The exhibits were certified true copies of Forms EC8A used in the presidential election. The Labour Party and Mr. Obi had on Thursday, May 25th, tendered exhibits in 6 states comprising Rivers, Benue, Cross River, Niger, Osun, and Ekiti states. Further hearing of the petition was adjourned until June 5th after legal counsel to Peter Obi, Mr. Peter Afoba-San, prayed the courts for an adjournment, having exhausted all the documents they had to tender for the day. And those are the news stories we have for you today. Over to you, Dio.
Thank you, Yetunde. We shall take a short break now. Well, the news now is that blackout looms across Nigeria because the Electricity Workers Union is going to join the NLC in this strike on Wednesday. So in addition to stockpiling food, you also need to stockpile petrol or whatever other means by which you generate electricity, because the electricity workers joining the strike, the person that's in the substation switching on and off the power supply will be staying at home. So if we're unlucky that he switches this off before he goes home on Tuesday night, it means we won't have power at all till they resolve the strike. Anyway, on a lighter note, let's take a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back and we'll take a deep dive into the issues Yetunde has laid out for us. Don't go away.
In the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the Go-To app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other People Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
Welcome back and good morning, Nigeria. I am Munisola Abosede. My host, Dayo Akitobia, will be giving us his take on the big stories we'll be looking at today. Good morning, Dayo.
Good morning, Munisola. It's always intriguing to me to be in a hot seat from time to time. So I guess I'm about to get a dose of my own medicine from you. All right, so let's get... What have you got for me this morning, Munisola?
All right, it's a pleasure to have you, to have your take on the big issues of the day. So let's get into it without further ado. So the NLC is set to begin a strike on Wednesday, nationwide indefinite strike, if the price of the premium motor spirit is not reverted, to its old price. Now, what do you think about the looming strike? What are your thoughts on the issue? Do you think Nigeria can afford a nationwide strike currently?
I've always viewed strikes as counterproductive. I don't believe that. I believe the price that is paid from a strike is often not in proportion to the benefits that are gained. And I also think strikes are very avoidable. I think that because at the end of the day, when you have a strike, what a strike does is it forces discussion, it forces negotiation, it forces conciliation and compromise. Why can't we have reached all those things first without the damaging effects of a strike where the whole nation is ground to a halt? My point is, at the end of the day, the thing is still going to be resolved at the negotiating table. So why couldn't we just go to the negotiating table from the beginning? Why do we have to use the instrument of a debilitating action such as a strike in which there are no winners? Disproportionately, the most vulnerable, those that the strike is seeking to help most, because of course the strike is all about, the cost of fuel has gone up because the subsidy has been removed, so transportation costs have gone up. Most of the working class people in Nigeria require some form of transportation to get to work. Their salaries are barely able to even cover their monthly costs. And now those transport fares have gone up, salaries have not increased. So the fight is for the underprivileged, the poor, the most vulnerable in the society. But that strike action is going to hurt them the most. Because the well-heeled, those who have resources, they can stockpile food, they can harness all the things that they will need when the country comes to a halt. Some of them even have police protections where they can move around freely, even in spite of a general strike where the whole country is locked down. So I think that all efforts should be made to avoid a strike as much as possible. And when that doesn't happen, I think it's more disruptive. So my thinking is that as opposed to actually grinding the country to a halt, that the federal government and the labor unions should try and come together and find a way to resolve this issue without it coming down to a strike.
Well said, Dayo. Do you think that this strike, if embarked upon, is going to yield positive developments in the country?
Well, strikes, at the end of the day, a resolution will be reached one way or the other. The resolution, there are three possibilities. Possibility one, roll back the subsidy removal. Let's go back to 187 or 195 or whatever it was. Option number two, maintain status quo, which is subsidy is gone, prices from 488 to 557. Option number 3, let's compromise somewhere in the middle. Let's do partial removal, whereby maybe we start paying like 250 or 300. Those are the 3 options. One of those 3 options is what is going to happen. So when you say, do I think the strike will have a result? Whether there's strike or there's no strike, one of those 3 things will happen. Right?
Yeah.
And any of those 3 things have its advantages and its disadvantages. If they decide to roll back the subsidy completely because labor grinds the country to a halt, and like President Jonathan did in 2014, if the current administration says, okay, people are against this, so we change our mind, we roll it back. If they roll it back, right, then the country is faced with the issue of 7 trillion naira already in this first half of the year, 7 trillion naira in subsidy payments that could have been used for other things. There's also, of course, the issue of smuggling, the issue of corruption in the subsidy regime. There are so many negative things about the subsidy. Country itself can't afford it as such any longer. So that's a disadvantage of bringing the subsidy back. If you completely remove the subsidy and maintain status quo of 488, it adversely impacts the poor because transportation costs have gone up. So that's the negative of keeping the subsidy removed, right? Especially when you've not put in cushioning measures. Now, if you take the middle of the road, which is partial removal, which means, okay, so we'll continue to subsidize parts for a while, which means we can pay around 250, which means that the shock or the effect will be less damaging on the common person, and it gives government enough time to put in cushioning measures while they gradually remove the subsidy. So even when you look at it, however they resolve this thing, any of the options has a plus and a minus. It just depends on what side of the economy you find yourself. So what matters most? Look, Nigerians want a better life. That's all they're agitating for. And each time they have increased petrol price at the pump, whether under subsidy removal, whatever guys they have used to increase petrol at the pump, governments have always promised us a better life for the last 40 years. We're increasing fuel because we want to improve the quality of your life. We want to improve social services. We want to improve infrastructure. We want to this. But we've not seen it. Look at where we are after 40 years of fuel hikes. We are still talking about bad roads. We're still talking about poor schools. We're still talking about decrepit hospitals. We're still talking about all the same issues that were bedeviling us. So it looks like we've been taken for a ride. And that is the main reason to objection to the fuel subsidy now, is that people don't trust government.
Yeah.
They look at it and they say, okay, so you want us to bear a disproportionate part of the burden, but you will be there living a life of luxury. You have 11 presidential jets. You have senators taking 13.5 million naira home every month in extras, not even their basic salary. So Nigerians are saying, this money you are going to save from subsidizing fuel, which is the only benefit we are getting, we don't believe that you are going to spend it to give us a better life. If that's the case, then reduce your own, let everybody sacrifice.
Yes.
Because the rich people, no matter how much you price fuel, the legislators can still buy it. It doesn't affect their salary. It doesn't disturb them in any way. So what sacrifices are our elite and our politicians ready to bring to the table to equate to what underprivileged Nigerians are being asked to sacrifice by this fuel subsidy, this fuel price hike? That's the thing. It should be balanced. Everybody should make equal sacrifice. It shouldn't be only the poor people that should bear the brunt. So that's what the elite and the political class need to communicate, is what sacrifice are they making? What gives them the moral right to ask us to make a sacrifice if they're not making any sacrifice? That's the main real sticking point of this fuel subsidy removal.
You know that you're speaking on sacrifices that the ruling class should make. You know, there are some quarters that are calling for cuts of cost of governance. Do you think this will go a long way in cushioning the effects of subsidy on the masses?
Well, it in and of itself, that action directly won't cushion the effect. But the money saved from cutting cost of governance, look at how many ministries, how many parastatals, look at the executive, how many aides are in each office. Look at, like I said, presidential jets, 11 of them, convoys of, even the smallest minister has a convoy of 20 vehicles. They go for medical tourism. They go for conferences overseas. There's all kinds of wastage. Then look at, we have 2 houses of parliament. 369 in House of Assembly, 109 in the Senate. By the time you add it together and you take all of their emoluments, I was just telling you a minute ago that the Senate, I read somewhere that each senator gets 13.5 million per month extra, separate from salary, extra. So what will happen is if we are able to cut the cost of governance, reduce the ministries, perhaps some miracle will happen to where we can actually go to a part-time legislature, maybe change to a parliamentary system, reduce houses of parliament to 1 instead of 2, and let them be part-time legislators. Let them have their regular day job, just be paid sitting allowance. If there are various things we can remove from the cost of governance, that will bring a lot of money back into the coffers of government. Do you even know what? By the time we cut cost of governance and save all that money, we can actually subsidize petrol for people. For the masses of Nigeria, there's enough money to save from cutting cost of governance that we'll be able to even afford to give subsidy. But let's even say we don't want to use it that way. All that money we save from governance, we can use to give a better life to Nigerians. We can use to improve education, improve healthcare, improve infrastructure, empower our youth, give all kinds of incentives to entrepreneurs to set up industries that will employ people. So cost of governance is a real big problem. It's a big problem that's contributing to this social malaise and economic stagnation that the country is experiencing, because absolutely, we are spending way too much on governance and administration. If we can find a way to cut it, it will definitely work wonders for us.
All right, very well said, Dayo. You've done enough justice to the questions. But still on the NLC strike, the impending strike coming on, I've got one more question.
Yes.
So do you think the NLC is going to or will be sincere in its agitations? Because, given past actions, there have been accusations that the NLC has negotiated with the government, without considering the masses, calling off strike actions, which have not brought any effect to the issues that were, at hand before they went on the strike.
Yes.
Do you think they will be sincere?
Yes, well, truth be told, there's a trust deficit everywhere in our country. The people who lead us in various sectors have failed us repetitively. They've betrayed us. They've cheated us to where we don't trust anybody anymore. Why do you think that agitation for cameras in the courtroom for the election tribunal is? Because they don't trust the judiciary. We don't have trust even in the judiciary to search for the truth, discover the truth, and tell us the truth. We don't have confidence. So you look at the labor union now, who's supposed to speak for the masses, and you wonder that will they go behind the back and take an envelope and end up compromising the integrity of the whole agitation? Because in the past, NLC has rattled the saber many times. Like, we are going to do this, we won't accept. And at the last minute, you don't hear anything anymore. And the general perception is, they've gone behind and collected envelope, and they've been settled. That's the big problem of Nigeria, settlement. You can settle anybody. Everybody has a price. And they don't care whose ox is God, they don't care about. So the NLC also has a trust deficit. The same way that our politicians have a trust deficit, the same way we don't trust government, the same way we don't trust the judiciary, so also we don't trust the NLC leadership. For now, we had them agitating, we're going to strike, we're going to ground the country to a halt. Then all of a sudden, maybe in the wee hours of Tuesday midnight, you suddenly hear that, they have reached compromise, and all of a sudden the NLC is calling off a strike. It will say maybe 1 or 2 of his chapters pulled out, decided they were not joining again, so they can't do the general strike because it won't be successful. And then the average Nigerian will think, they've collected settlement. So I can't really say that.
All right, moving on to our final story for today.
Yes.
The Presidential Election Tribunal Court has admitted more exhibits from 6 more states from the Obi camp. Peter Obi is in court. Atiku, the PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, is also in court contesting the February 25th election results. Now, don't you think this is taking too long and that the process should be sped up,
I'm not so worried about the time. I think it matters more that the evidence is carefully weighed. The Constitution allows a maximum of 180 days. They have 180 days, which is 6 months from, I guess, when the petitions were filed to completely adjudicate the process. But I think it's good to be painstaking to examine every document. My worry, more than the issue of time, is the weight of the evidence being thrown at the tribunal. There's a barrage of documents. This is just Peter Obi's own. Peter Obi alone has about 6 or 7 issues. He's complaining about, I didn't follow his own procedure, that it didn't upload the BVAS, the result, it didn't upload to IREF. He's complaining that, 25% of 24 states and Abuja, that is conjunctive, so you have to have won 25. He's complaining about President Tinubu's past conviction in America. He's complaining about Shettima had double nomination. They have about 6 or 7 issues. One party, one petitioner has about 6 or 7 issues before the court. The PDP has another 6 or 7 issues before the court. Then ADM or one of the others has. So my worry is the sheer weight. I'm not worried about the time. The sheer weight of all the documentation, the allegations, the accusations, the sheer weight of it is enough to collapse the whole house. So how do they manage? How do 3 justices, the election petitioner is 3 justices, how do 3 justices sift through thousands and thousands and thousands? I mean, this from EC8A. This is the form from each polling unit that is a summary of the results from that polling unit signed by the agents of all parties. There are 176,000 polling units across Nigeria, although of course they said they picked certain states. So it's not as if they are bringing documents from all the polling units, but there are still thousands and thousands and thousands of documents that have to be examined one by one by one. So I worry that it's just a little bit too much for real justice to be done in terms of actually being able to put a microscope and take a bird's eye, a real microscopic view of each piece of evidence to be able to know what was doctored, what was altered, what was falsified, which one is accurate, which one is holds up to scrutiny, that kind of thing. And then listen to arguments. You have to examine evidence, listen to arguments, draw a conclusion. So I wish our judiciary well in being able to arrive at the truth. That's the most important thing. Let the truth be told, let justice prevail.
All right, thank you so much, Dayo, for your take. It's been an amazing time on the show. Thank you. And that is where we must rest it today. Thank you so much for your take.
It's always a pleasure to get an opportunity every once in a while to give my own take. Most of the time, I'm the one asking other people for their own take. So maybe next time, I will sit over there, you will sit here, and I'll ask you for your own take. The next time after that, I'll have you today in this hot seat. In this hot seat, and both of you will come and tell Nigeria what your own take is on the issues of the day. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you so much, Nigeria, for being a part of the show. Join us next time as we bring to you trenchant analysis of the big stories that made the headlines of major newspapers in the country. My name is Munisola Abosede. Have a nice day.